Welcome. Today is our 10th session of online messages. And so we thought it would be pretty cool to do the 10 core concepts of Science of Mind. Science of Mind is a teaching, a philosophy, a way of life, a way of living. And the 10 core concepts are, number 1 is oneness.
Number 2 is the triune nature.
3 is the creative process.
4 is infinity.
The 5th one is wholeness.
Number 6 is abundance.
7 is a reciprocal universe.
Number 8 is forgiveness.
Number 9, immortality.
And the 10th is Christ consciousness.
So we're going to go back and talk about each one of those along the way in kind of conversation. And the first one, oneness. So we're looking at the idea that God is all that is. There is only one life, one presence. And I refer to it as God. I also call it universe, one energy, perfect life. We have many names for this idea of God. And it is the idea that there is one consciousness.
It's the idea that there is one power and one presence in the universe. It's something greater than we are, and we can use it. So it makes us, we start off our spiritual mind treatment, our affirmative prayer, with that idea that God is all that is. There's only one power and presence in the universe. That kind of wipes out any negative concept, anything that could possibly be against us, and knowing that the whole universe is for us if God is all that is.
Yes, and I like that idea that when we pray or give treatment, we are affirming first that God is all that is, because as we know that, we will think more clearly about that which aligns with the qualities and the nature of God. The second idea is the triune nature of God. And so, although God is one, God has many qualities and characteristics. God is you, God is me, God is the flower, the tree, the mountain, the ocean, the visible and the invisible. And so we have a symbol that we often use. We call it a teaching symbol in Science of Mind that looks like this. You want to talk about that?
Well, you can see that it's divided into 3 sections. We have the top section, and the middle section, and the lower section. The top section represents God, the presence of all that is, the God, the overarching essence of possibility, the realm of infinite possibility. The second section is called the law. I'll get back to that in a second. But the bottom part is called form or substance, and that is where we hold consciousness, and we as we hold the consciousness, our belief systems and our emotions tie into that, and we actually create and bring that which is infinite possibility into form. And as it passes through, as you see how this line goes down, the line goes down, it's called the descent of consciousness. We have a hold of thought, and as we hold that thought, it passes through the law, and the law must respond to that thought and our belief systems in that idea, and therefore it becomes manifest in our lives, and so it becomes the body or the form. And when the time we hold that consciousness, the time when we release that consciousness or let it go, or no longer serving us in our human needs, we let it pass back up. Then, this way, and it was released back into the realm of possibility again. So form becomes matter, and then when we no longer need it to remain in that form or in that matter, we allow it to release back up into the realm of possibilities again.
Yes, the Bible says ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And so the circle represents all that is. That symbolizes God, universal wholeness, oneness, and this represents both the macrocosm of all that is God and the way God operates. And likewise, it represents the microcosm, which is you and me, and how we take higher consciousness, our God consciousness, place that seed within our own mind into the law being the force of action that always says yes unto the seed, so that we get an apple tree when we plant an apple seed, and we get a carrot when we plant a carrot seed. And that is the manifestation of life itself. So the symbol is really useful in helping us understand the triune nature of God, and also core concept number 3, the creative process. So that's what we just explained. Is there more?
It's important for us to realize that as God creates, we know that God is the great creator. But since God is all that is, and we can recognize that we are one with all that is. And so therefore, as God creates, we as its creation are equal to that same process. So therefore, we create in our own lives the same way that God creates in the universe.
Yes, through consciousness, through our own thinking. And so we move to core concept number 4, which is infinity. The idea that there is no end, no beginning, and no end in God. God has no end to it. It is eternal. And therefore, as a soul essence of this life experience, our lives are infinite.
That means when we leave this plane, we don't actually stop. We just move on to a new experience. When we leave this human experience, we pass on to other different dimensions in which we experience life in a different way. So we don't ever actually stop living. Life never ends. The human experience may end, but life never ends. We move on from one experience to another.
And that is so reassuring to know that there is no end to God. There is no end to life itself and to our lives. And so we each experience that in different ways. We each think of that in different ways, and that's okay. It's okay for us to have different opinions from someone else and to still love them, to still accept them exactly for who they are, and allow each one the freedom and the blessing of knowing their God in their personal way. And so we move into the idea of wholeness. And for me, I just really love the experience of realizing God with so many names. In actuality, there is nothing in life that is not of God, that can't be called God. And it may be on an extreme of negativism that will die out, because the only things that can live in this eternal now are the good things, because anything that is unlike the quality and the nature of God must die off eventually. And so as we look at wholeness for me is a beautiful idea of God. It's the idea that even when I'm sick, and this is just one example, even when I'm sick, as I have been the last couple of weeks, I can still know wholeness, because wholeness is God. Wholeness is the idea of all that is. And my personal experience may have been to be experiencing symptoms that we associate with being sick, being ill, being unhealthy. And yet my truth at the same time is that I'm always whole, complete, and perfect. And so are you. And there's such a freedom in feeling that wholeness and knowing that that is the absolute truth, despite appearances.
We have a lot of ways of looking at God, and we have to remember that no matter what spiritual tradition we come from, we may look at God a little bit differently or have different names. but we would all pretty much agree that God is perfect, God is all that is, God is complete, and therefore if God is all that is, I am also part of that essence. And so therefore anything that is true of God is true of me in my personal life experience. So therefore I am perfect, I am whole, I am beautiful. The Bible said God is love. And so therefore God is love and I am love. So therefore I have to hold that as the truth of who I am. And when I forget that, I use spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer to remind myself of the true nature of who I am, the wholeness, the perfection, the completeness, the health, and the abundance of all that is the nature of God. So therefore it must be the nature of who I am, since I am a creation of that perfection.
And it does help to have someone else affirming it for you, affirming that you are whole, complete, and perfect.
We are very blessed.
You are whole, complete, and perfect, despite any appearance. And isn't that really cool, the way life has its rocks and rolls, its waves, its highs and its lows? Imagine if you lived at the high all the time. And yet at the same time, it's good to have that core center of your very being so completely steeped in knowing wholeness and knowing oneness and knowing perfect life, that no matter what comes your way, you know that this too shall pass.
This moves us very, very well into our next core concept of abundance, because we quite often don't remember that we live in an abundant universe. We quite often feel that there's not enough to go around, and we quite often feel like if the guy across the street gets something there, that it's not enough left for me or something. The truth is we live in an abundant universe, and we live in an infinite universe, and so therefore there is no limit to the possibilities in life. And we may see it in our lives, we have a conscious, and in consciousness we may have a different opinion of that or feeling about that. The truth is, we do remember that we live in an abundant universe, and as we remind ourselves of that, we no longer feel that there is any limitation at all.
Yes, and as we accept these core concepts and we grow them within our own consciousness, within our own heart and our mind, then eventually we get to the point where we no longer want or think any negative idea about what the guy next door has, because we come to understand that all of life is one life, and therefore whatever you have, I have. And so I can bask in the joy of you having it. And there's something really good about that feeling, that you can give up any sense of jealousy, any sense of feeling like there's not enough, feeling like there's a lack in the universe, but rather consciously associating your own thinking with that of your desire until you know absolutely that it is yours. And so that moves us into the next idea, core concept number 7, universal, reciprocal universe, which is all about the balance of life, the acts of giving and receiving.
The word reciprocal actually means back and forth. It means that which we put out into the universe returns back to us. Whatever idea or concept that we hold in our own mind is that which is what we receive back to us. That's the idea of prayer. As we put out a prayer, we put a positive idea, a positive concept, a positive belief system out into the universe, and then it returns back to us according to what we believe to be the truth. The universe doesn't make judgments of what's good for us. The universe returns back to us that which we believe in and that which we hold conscious energy towards. So therefore we have a reciprocal action going on. I am putting out into the universe ideas and belief systems, and the universe is returning back to me and saying, your wish is my command. And so therefore we receive according to our belief systems.
Yes, and so if we don't like what we're receiving right now, we can change our thinking, change our life. And so I can remember one time someone said to me, well, I don't have any money to give, but I give a lot of time. And I really pondered that for a while, because the person who said it to me did not appear not to have money to give. Appeared to, and I knew this person quite well, and they did have money to give. They chose not to give money, and quite often would be complaining about not having enough money. And I think that that idea that we hold on to, that there's lack, that there's limitation, that if I give some of what I have away, there won't be enough. I know that the day that I began tithing, 10%, tithing is giving 10% of your income to that place where you are spiritually fed, be it a spiritual community or a person or whoever or whatever that is. And so I know that for me, the day that I gave it, the first time that I tithed, truly tithed, I thought, oh my gosh, what if there's not enough? And I knew better than to think that, but it still came up in my mind. And I remember a Signs of Mine saying that says, begin where you are. Okay, so I began where I was, and I allowed it to be okay that I had that thought flitting through. I was still giving, and I was reminding myself that life is abundant and life is prosperous. And all I have to do is look around me in nature to see that example, and I too can experience it. And sure enough, it wasn't no time at all before I didn't even notice that giving. In fact, I learned some of the Mary Mannon Morrissey tricks. And one of them is whenever you give, like with electricity, whenever you pay your bill, instead of going, oh my gosh, my electric bill's this much, think, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I get to give this money so I have electricity, so I have lights, and we enjoy TV and lots of other things, computers, anything that takes your electricity. How about your refrigerator and the food that's in it that gets to stay cool? Or in Florida, the air conditioning. They all take electricity. So as I pay the bills now, I give great thanks for that. Thank you, Mary.
It's interesting how these core concepts seem to flow one right into the other, and the meaning of them actually overlap from one to the other. Our next core concept is forgiveness. And forgiveness is the idea that the consciousness that I hold and put out into the world actually returns back to me. So if I hold resentment or disdain for anyone in the world or anything, that disdain and resentment is going to bounce back to me. And so I'm actually creating that in my own life. Whatever belief system I hold to be true is going to show up in my own life. So therefore, if I want to release negative ideas from my, or negative experiences from my life, I need to release those negative ideas and concepts that I hold. And so forgiveness is releasing those things, letting them go, so that I can experience the goodness of life.
Yes, and you know, forgiveness is invaluable to us as human beings. Remember that forgiveness does not mean that what the other person has done or you believe they've done, whichever it may be, is right. All it means is that you are releasing that offensive behavior from your own mind.
Actually, forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with your own consciousness and your own life experience.
Yes. And you can see how we can pick right up and take each other's thought and run with it, right? We do this regularly. Spiritual conversations are fabulous because they bring us deeper and deeper into a consciousness of positivity. They're motivational and inspirational, and they're really great for a marriage or any relationship, really.
That's true. Immortality. Immortality, we kind of talked about a little while ago. Immortality is the idea that life never ceases. It keeps going on and on and on. In the Christian tradition, we look at Easter as a time when Jesus recognized his universal nature, his ability to live on beyond this human experience. And so when he ascended and went into heaven, he didn't move from this plane into another plane and into another place. He actually just recognized the fact that he is no longer held in his human form and he could pass on into another experience. That is true for all of us. We look at Jesus as a great example, not the great exception. And so there we realized everything that Jesus did was a teaching for us, a model for us to be able to live up to. So immortality is recognizing that life is infinite, life is eternal, and since we are living, we go on from this life experience and we continue to live, maybe in a different experience, but we continue to live.
And core concept number 10 is Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness actually means that consciousness that Jesus attained. It can be, for me, thought of as God consciousness, thought of as a perfect, whole, and complete consciousness, a consciousness of love, a consciousness of knowing good for myself and for everyone, everywhere, as often as possible.
Christ consciousness is our recognition that we are one with the oneness of all that is. We are one with the unity of the power and presence of all good in the universe. We are one with that. We hold that consciousness to be a truth. And so therefore we are one with God. So as Jesus was one with the Father, he said, my Father and I are one. We are also sons of God. We are sons of the Almighty. And so therefore we experience, actually we are God experiencing life in human form. And so we hold that consciousness of universal truth and create a goodness in our own lives.
Yes. And so with those 10 core concepts in mind, it's important for us to realize that it is done to us as we believe. That is a Bible verse that is incredibly true, and one in which Jesus, the great example of life, knew and lived. And so all of our life is the outpicturing of our personal consciousness, and there is such an incredible freedom in that understanding, in that acceptance of truth, because we can then realize that anything that we don't like in our life, we have the power to change through the consciousness of our own mind, our own thinking. Anything more you want to say about these concepts?
That wraps it up pretty well.
Good. Well, as we give love, we attract love, and I'm grateful for the love that we have, and I'm also grateful for our love of this teaching, our love of life, and our love of you. May you experience many, many blessings in this life and beyond.